Madrid, the 2nd of May, 1870. The bells of San Isidro toll over a city locked in shadow in the courtyard of the Carabanchel prison. Morning light falls like pale iron across a wooden scaffold. The air is thick with the smell of lamp oil and cold stone. Manuel Blanco Romasanta, shackled, his breath misting in the chill, fixes his eyes on the glinting arc of the Garrote's steel collar. Behind him, the executioner's hands tighten on the lever, its oiled wood slick under his grip. The crowd holds its breath. No cries, no jeers, only the sound of rope fibers straining as the chair creaks under weight. To many, the garrote is swift, merciful, a civilized alternative to the axe. But the truth is slower, more intimate, and far crueler. The moment the iron twists, sinew and windpipe collapse together in a silence that drags into eternity. Today we strip away the legend of the clean kill. This is the story of a machine built not only to end life, but to break the will of a nation. Madrid, the 2nd of May, 1870. The bells of San Isidro toll over a city locked in shadow. In the courtyard of the Carabanchel prison, morning light falls like pale iron across the scaffold. The air smells of lamp oil and cold stone. Manuel Blanco Romasanta, shackled at the wrists, exhales a breath that mists in the chill. His eyes fix on the glint of the garrote's steel collar, polished, waiting. Behind him, the executioner grips the lever, the wood slick with oil. No voice rises from the gathered crowd. No jeer, no prayer, only the faint groan of the chair as its weight shifts. To those who have never stood here, the garrote is merciful, a clean, almost invisible death. But the truth is slower. The iron does not kill with the neat instant of a blade. It strangles, it grinds, it waits. Today we strip away the legend of the clean kill. This is the story of a machine built not only to take life, but to break the dignity of those who live under its shadow. And in the turn of that screw lies a question no ruler dares speak aloud. How much obedience can be wrenched from the human soul before it turns to ash? Barcelona, 1720. In the dim workshop of Juan de la Peña, the smell of charred wood and cold metal hangs in the air. On a workbench lies the first shape of it, a squat post of oak, an iron collar hinged like a manacle, and a threaded screw designed to crush rather than cut. Outside, the city groans with soldiers and merchants, but here only the sound of the file on iron fills the room. Officials will call it efficient, even painless. They will speak of civility, of sparing the condemned the spectacle of the axe. But the truth is written in its stillness. No flying head, no splash of blood, no visible violence to stain the dignity of the state. The victim will sit upright until the last breath, a citizen reduced to an object, silent under the tightening of the screw. In the ledgers, it will be recorded as swift, in private letters. Witnesses will recall the slow sagging of the head, the twitch of limbs long after the turn. The state prefers the cleaner tale. Soon the garrote becomes law, sanctioned not for mercy but for mastery. And once the device leaves the workshop, its purpose will be bent by the hands that wield it. Madrid, 1845. The square holds no roar, no applause. Soldiers in blue stand at its edges, their bayonets glinting in the pale morning. A political ally of Ramon Cabrera sits bound on a plain chair at the center. He does not speak. Perhaps the rope at his wrist steals his words, or perhaps the knowledge of what waits at the back of his neck does. The executioner steps forward. The lever turns. No scream, only a deep groan that folds into the wind. Here, silence is the chosen weapon. The absence of blood convinces the watching world of civility, yet those who stand close can see the minute spasms in the condemned man's chest. Some foreign accounts will write of an instant passing into death. Spanish surgeons, their notes hidden in hospital archives, will write of 3, sometimes 5 minutes of breathless struggle. Stillness, not mercy, is the performance. And somewhere in the hush between moments, the crowd learns what it means to be ruled by quiet fear. In that silence, another kind of death begins to grow. Seville, 1852. The dawn air is damp, and Gregorio Mayoral, executioner, moves with deliberate care. He adjusts the hemp rope that pins the prisoner's arms to the chair. His fingers test the iron collar's hinge. The screw turns with an oiled whisper. The craft is in the speed and force too slow, and the condemned will choke for long minutes too fast, and the bone will splinter, tearing flesh. Mayoral prides himself on the precise turn, the one that breaks the neck without spilling a drop. Yet the witnesses remember more, the thin line of red blooming at the edge of the collar, the way the head slumps before the eyes close. The garrote is both machine and mask, a thing built to hide the mess it makes. But in a chamber lit by weak sun, the iron speaks its own language, indifferent to skill or pride. And when politics enter the chamber, that language will be rewritten entirely. Madrid, 1845. Dawn drips into the Plaza de la Cebada like pale water over stone, pooling in the hollows between cobbles. The air is cool, holding the faint tang of iron from the soldiers' bayonets. They form a perfect ring, blue tunics pressed sharp, faces still. The crowd stands at a respectful distance, hemmed in by discipline more than fear, their murmurs swallowed by the wide open space. No drums roll, no trumpet cuts the air. The moment does not announce itself, it waits. In the center, a single chair rests on a low platform, its legs squared like a piece of furniture in a bare room. Ramon Cabrera's ally sits bound upon it, his shoulders set as though in a portrait. His wrists are lashed, his ankles bound. The iron collar curves behind his neck, cold and certain. An executioner, anonymous beneath the brim of his hat, steps forward without hurry. His hands settle on the lever as if weighing a private bargain. Then a turn, slow, deliberate, final. There is no cry, only a faint groan that rises and dies in the same breath. The crowd does not flinch, the soldiers do not move. The weapon here is not the machine, but the silence that follows it, an emptiness large enough to swallow rebellion whole. Foreign envoys writing by candlelight that evening will tell of swift deaths, of the garrote's supposed civility. They will speak of dignity preserved, of a modern justice without spectacle. But in the corners of hospital records, surgeons will note the truth, that the body takes 3, sometimes 5 minutes to surrender its breath. That the twitch in the prisoner's fingers, the tremor in his chest, is not some final reflex, but the body's stubborn refusal to be stilled. The pageantry is measured in stillness, not in mercy. No blood stains the square. No voice carries over the rooftops. The crowd disperses as if leaving a play whose final scene has ended in a whisper. But for those who stood close enough to see the jaw tighten, the eyes cloud, the knees tremble against the bonds, the performance leaves a shadow. It seeps into their memory, settling there like dust in a locked room. And beyond the reach of the soldier's gaze, in the narrow streets where whispers still move like smoke, a new kind of death takes root, not of the body, but of the belief that voices can be raised without consequence. Seville, 1852. The morning air is close and heavy, the kind that clings to the skin. In the small chamber off the prison courtyard, Gregorio Mayoral works in near silence. The walls are bare limewash, cool to the touch, the light falling in a narrow slice across the chair. He begins with the rope, a coarse braid of hemp, stiff but fraying at its edges. He loops it around the prisoner's forearms, drawing it tight until skin bulges faintly above the cord. The knots are practiced, each turn deliberate. Mayoral moves to the iron collar. The hinge creaks, soft but certain, as he swings it open to fit the curve of a neck. He runs a thumb along the screw's ridges, slick with oil, feeling for any snag that might slow the turn. To him, precision is the measure of a man in his trade. One firm motion should snap the cervical vertebrae. Too slow, and the condemned will hang on the edge of consciousness, choking against the pressure. Too fast, and bone may shatter, tearing flesh and staining the wood with blood. He tells himself he has mastered the clean turn, the one that leaves no mark beyond the stillness. But those who have stood close remember otherwise. They speak of the faint sound of skin parting, of a line of red creeping around the edge of the collar. They recall how the body sometimes stiffens after the lever is drawn, muscles fighting against the inevitable, as though they have not been told they are already dead. The garrote stands here as both machine and mask. Its smooth iron is the polished face of violence, the oiled wood its stage. It is meant to present order, to keep horror unseen. Yet in this room, where the air holds the smell of rope fiber and cold metal, the truth lies in what the state will never write down. The drawn breath cut short, the last twitch under the skin, the long moment before the silence becomes complete. And when the execution leaves the realm of trade and enters the realm of politics, the device will not only end lives, it will speak the language of power, every turn of the screw a sentence delivered on behalf of the throne. Madrid, 1868. The city stirs under a sullen sky, clouds the color of tarnished silver, pressing low over tiled roofs. In the corridors of the royal palace, the air smells of wax and damp wool, the scent of an old order trying to keep its shape. Queen Isabella II's grip is slipping. Streets hum with seditious whispers. Taverns bristle with songs that dare to name her. In the prisons, dissenters lie awake, counting heartbeats against the slow march toward morning. José María Montes, a journalist whose pen has cut too deep, sits in the chill of his cell. His articles have named corruption where it hides, painted the court not as a seat of majesty, but as a stage for decay. The trial was swift, the verdict certain, sedition, they call it. At dawn, the garrote will speak for the throne. The execution is no hidden shame. It is theater by design. Diplomats are summoned, their carriages rolling over the cobblestones before the sun lifts. They are ushered to seats near enough to observe, far enough to feel unsoiled. They will return to their capitals with stories of Spain's modern justice, of a method that is clean, bloodless, merciful. But in the alleys beyond the square, pamphlets are already moving from hand to hand, printed in haste on coarse paper. They do not speak of civility. They speak of the moment the collar closed around Montes' neck, of the way his jaw clenched, the way his gaze fixed on some point beyond the crowd, as if already staring past them into a world they could not reach. When the lever turns, the square does not erupt in noise. The soldiers hold their line, faces impassive. The sun tips over the palace dome, catching on a gloved hand that rests for a heartbeat on the wooden handle, as if claiming the act for the crown itself. Montes' body sags. The collar's shadow falls across his shirt. Later, the official accounts will note the efficiency, the dignity, the absence of pain. Witnesses will speak in low voices of the time it took for his chest to fall still, of the stubborn fight in the muscles of his neck. The truth lives in both tellings, yet the court will choose the one that strengthens the throne. Because this is not justice, it is a message. It tells the living what happens when words cross into defiance. It tells them that the crown does not need the roar of an axe or the spatter of blood to remind them who rules. Power can be as quiet as the turn of a screw, but revolutions do not end with the tightening of iron. They wait, silent, under the same sky, learning how long they must hold their breath before the air shifts again. Barcelona, 1890. The air in the prison is thick with the smell of damp stone and lamp oil, a smell that clings to cloth and hair long after one leaves. The great plazas are quiet this morning. There will be no gathering of soldiers, no hum of a crowd pressing forward to witness. The garrote no longer stands beneath the open sky. It waits here, in a narrow chamber, its iron collar catching the dim light of a single oil lamp. The prisoner walks slowly down the corridor, steps echoing off the walls. Each stride is measured, not by choice, but by the weight of the two guards at his side. He does not look up. His shadow stretches ahead of him, elongated, bent by the uneven stones beneath his feet. Somewhere behind a door, someone clears a throat. The sound is quickly swallowed by the silence. They call this progress, a gesture toward dignity. No longer will death be served as public theater. No longer will the onlookers cheer or weep or feel the invisible shiver that runs through a square when a man's life ends before them. Now it is private, orderly, humane. That is what the officials write. But the collar is the same. The screw is the same. The breath still leaves in the same slow surrender. The chair scrapes against the flagstones as it is placed. The rope cuts into wrists and ankles. The iron closes around the neck with a familiar weight. Here, without the distraction of a crowd, the moment stretches unbearably long. Every creak of the wood, every tightening of the screw becomes magnified until it fills the air like a pressure one cannot escape. In the plaza, death was part of the city's pulse, absorbed into the noise and light of day. Here, behind walls, it hangs suspended, unbroken by wind or birdsong, a stillness so complete it feels as though the world outside has stopped turning. The machine has not softened, it has only withdrawn from sight, carrying its shadow into a place where it can grow thicker, heavier, untouched by the cleansing light of morning. And as the century tilts toward its end, that shadow will not remain in Spain alone. It will cross oceans, carried in crates and orders, following the flag into lands where its cold efficiency will speak in a new tongue. Manila, 1897. The air is thick enough to taste, heavy with the scent of wet earth and burning oil from the street lamps outside the prison walls. The garrote stands in the courtyard, its iron darkened by years of touch and by the rust that creeps along its edges in the constant humidity. Water beads on the collar and runs down in slow lines, dripping into a shallow puddle that trembles with each distant roll of thunder. Francisco Roxas sits bound to the chair. His shirt clings to him, damp from both the heat and the long walk from his cell. The ropes at his wrists are drawn tight, cutting faint grooves into the skin. He stares ahead, not at the soldiers lining the walls, but at a patch of grey sky where the clouds hang low over the city. His breath is steady, though each inhalation catches slightly, as if the air itself has thickened in defiance. Spanish officials stand close enough to be heard, but far enough to keep their boots clean. They speak in low, clipped tones of procedure, of dignity, of the civilizing purpose of this machine. They will write in their reports that death came instantly, that the prisoner felt nothing beyond a momentary pressure. But those who will carry the memory speak otherwise. They will recall the drawn-out seconds, the way Roxas's head turned slightly, as if searching for something, perhaps the sea, perhaps a face before the collar tightened. They will remember the beads of sweat rolling down the executioner's cheek, the minute tremor in his hands as the screw bit deeper. They will remember that the body did not still at once, but fought against the iron, the chest heaving against bonds that refused to yield. The garrote, once the quiet tool of the Spanish crown, now works beneath foreign skies. It serves here not only to kill, but to declare possession. In Havana's damp courtyards, in the shadowed yards of colonial outposts, the same device is set into place, the same myth carried in the same official language. The iron does not care if the name it silences is Spanish, Cuban, Filipino. It turns all the same, translating rebellion into stillness. But time is a patient eroder. Rainwater seeps into threads, rust spreads along the screw, and the fear it commands begins to dull at the edges. Even an empire cannot keep its grip forever on a tool meant to choke the breath from the living. Barcelona, the 2nd of March 1974. The dawn sky hangs low and colorless over the city, as though the day itself is reluctant to arrive. Inside Modelo prison, the air is cold and smells faintly of disinfectant and iron. Footsteps echo along the stone corridors, measured and unhurried, as though time has no urgency here. In a small chamber, the garrote stands as it always has, its wood worn smooth by decades of hands, its screw oiled to a dull sheen. Salvador Purigantic sits bound to the chair. His hair has been cropped short, the sharp lines of his jaw more pronounced in the dim light. He does not look at the machine, though it stands only a pace behind him. His eyes are fixed somewhere past the door, past the men in uniform, as if there were a way to see beyond walls this thick. Outside, the streets thrum with protest, voices raised against the weight of Franco's dying rule. Inside, the noise is absent, replaced by the low murmur of officials confirming the sentence, their words precise, deliberate. Franco's Spain still calls it humane, still calls it dignified. The language has not changed since the days of the crown, though the power it serves is now a dictatorship in its final years. The executioner steps forward, his gloved hand closes over the lever. The collar, cold against the skin, tightens with the first turn. Witnesses will later speak of the stillness in the room, of the shaft of light falling across the floor like a dividing line between the living and the dead. The official time of death is recorded at 9:40 a.m. Yet those present will remember the drawn-out moments that followed, the slow rise and fall of a chest that refused to stop. The garrote, once a symbol of the monarchy's control, now completes its work in service of a regime gasping its last. Its purpose has not softened. Its silence remains its sharpest weapon. The old machine delivers its final message not to the man in the chair. He has already passed beyond its reach, but to those who watch, those who will carry the memory into the years that follow. And then it is over. The body is unbound. The machine stands idle. Within a year, the garrote will be retired, its parts consigned to museum glass and government storage. Yet its shadow remains, stretching across history like the line of light that crossed the prison floor, marking the moment when power's hand turned for the last time and proved it could still take breath before it lost its own.